Welcome, everybody, to a special edition, I'd say, of Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. Not only is it Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, it's also sort of like a dual thing going on. We got Brianna Joy Gray in the house, and this will be on her channel as well, the Bad Faith Podcast.
Little crossover episode.
Little crossover episode.
Love that for us.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. So we're going to discuss Cornel West's campaign and everything around that. And I just want everybody in the audience to know, because I don't know if we've said this publicly before, that like he's been invited on multiple times and he just hasn't come on yet. And, you know, this goes all the way back to when he launched. We invited him on. He hasn't come on yet. You know, will he eventually? I don't know. You know, it's up to him. Ball's in his court.
And we had him on before.
We had him on before, before he announced his campaign. I mean, we're going back to when the People's Party thing launched.
Right.
We invited him on all the way back then too, and just haven't heard back or anything. But I just don't want people to think we're debating Cornel West, but like Crystal and Kyle are refusing to talk to Cornel West. We'd love to talk to Cornel West. We want to have him, you know, we'd love to have him on at any point in time to discuss anything and everything. So we're going to discuss his campaign a little bit here. And so I want to lay out what my position is, and then Bree, I'll turn it over to you and you can respond to it. And Crystal, you can jump in at some point and say what your position is.
We'll go through all the things.
We'll go through all the things. So here's my, first of all, in the Democratic primary, because I'm a registered Democrat in New York, I will be voting for Marianne Williamson. Very happy and proud to say that. I'm the chief Marianne Williamson bro out there. I'm leading the charge. Now, in New York, I'm in a safe state. So would I vote for Cornel West in New York? Yes, because I have a 95% agreement with him on policy. And I think it would be nice to get the Green Party in a position where if they become more viable because we get ranked choice voting or something, it'd be nice to grow their popularity a little bit. And when we get ranked choice voting, I think they kind of automatically become a lot more viable. So I'd like to help out in that process. But if I'm in a swing state and it's Biden versus Trump, I'm at the point now where I don't even think it's a tough call. I would definitely vote for Biden, because either in that situation, even if other people are running, either the Democrat or the Republican is going to win. And in my estimation, Biden has definitely passed what I would describe as my bare minimum purity test. And I think if it's him or Trump, or even him or DeSantis or anybody, he just blows them out of the water. And so I think I'd happily vote for Biden in that instance. Your response?
So I similarly was voting for Jill Stein in New York in 2016.
I did the same.
And I also happen to believe that strategically it makes the most sense to apply pressure to the Democratic Party by voting for not Biden in a primary. Marianne Williamson is obviously the most progressive candidate in the primary, and then vote for Cornel West in the general. And I know there are a lot of people in my audience who are frustrated by that plan because they think that it takes something away from Cornel West's run, or it affirms the Democratic Party in some way to vote for Marianne Williamson running as a Democrat. I don't feel that way. I feel it's a little hypocritical to have that position, given that we all just enthusiastically voted for Bernie twice in the primary the last 2 rounds. You can make a distinction saying that Bernie was an independent and he always identified as an independent, and Marianne Williamson doesn't have that kind of cloak of distance from the Democratic Party. You can say what you want. I don't see those things as mutually exclusive in the least. So that is also my plan. I differ from you only insofar as that I would say it's a more difficult choice in a swing state to decide what you're going to do. But I frankly respect people who feel comfortable. It has not been something that I have to contend with, but I respect people who feel comfortable voting third party even in swing states. And the reason is this, and it goes back to that early bad faith viral Noam Chomsky interview, in which I asked him about a month before the 2020 race. Look, I said, I take your point. Let's say Trump is an existential threat. Let's say that he's a unique threat among all Republican candidates. My concern is that every year, because we all vote for blue no matter who, because most Democrats vote blue no matter who, or most left-leaning people do, the message that gets sent out is that Democrats don't have a bar. You can go as low as you want, as close to the Democratic Party as you, Republican Party as you want, and there's a ratchet to the right effect. And Republicans know that they can keep being more and more extreme. And so I want you to explain to me what you predict to be the stopping point at which we're no longer saying this new Republican is the worst that has ever happened. This new Republican is the worst that has ever happened. Tell me you're not going to be saying the same thing about Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy or whatever other person comes down the pike. And he was unable, in my subjective view, to respond credibly to that claim. So if somebody could tell me strategically what the stopping point is going to be of making this argument of the lesser of two evils, I would be open to the idea that, okay, this is the last one. Donald Trump, fine. He tried to steal the election. Fine. That is a new line that he has crossed. But absent an acknowledgement that we are creating our own destiny by lowering the bar in these ways, I'm not comfortable coming out and criticizing anybody who no longer wants to be complicit in that kind of a system that's enabled the Democratic Party to not have a primary, treat Marianne Williamson as badly as they've treated her, treat Bernie Sanders as badly as they treated him, and openly come out and say they don't have to hold a free, fair election. The DNC argue that in court.
So let me explain a little bit of my position. I think that'll help respond to some of what you said there. And I'm also curious to dig in a little bit more to your analysis of how the Biden administration has actually been in reality. So last election in 2020, I did live in a swing state. I lived in Virginia, still live in Virginia, registered in Virginia. And it did not feel good to vote for Joe Biden, but I decided to vote for Joe Biden, which is something I said publicly at the time. But I said something very similar to you, which is like, listen, this was not easy for me. If you, wherever you live, swing state, not swing state, et cetera, you do whatever you analyze is the right thing to do. And the reason that I voted for him primarily at that time, even though I thought he had an atrocious record in the Senate, even though, complicit in the Iraq War, complicit in bad trade deals, complicit, like terrible things on crime, all that stuff, right? The primary reason I voted for him was because of the National Labor Relations Board. And because labor politics and building out union power in this country, to me, is one of the most important goals and something that I think we all share and leftists generally believe. Now, in retrospect, not only do I feel good about that vote, he's actually surprised me. Now, I've got all kinds of issues, right? On the National Labor Relations Board, though, specifically, they just issued a ruling which could be a complete game changer for unions. And just to explain to people a little bit, basically, in the past, bosses could union bust with impunity, no accountability. Now, the process going forward is completely changed. If bosses are caught union busting, then that's it. There's no more election. It's canceled. They have to recognize the union and start bargaining with them. That's the biggest shift in labor relations we've had in our lifetime. So that's why at this point, I'm not only, it's likely to, I'm a Marianne supporter as well, but we can all see the most likely outcome is it's going to be Trump versus Biden. Not only would I say that protecting the Biden National Labor Relations Board isn't important enough for me to vote for Joe Biden, but it is important enough that I would actively encourage, but I'm not going to shame them for whatever they decide to do, but I would actively encourage people who are in a swing state to vote for Joe Biden, if for no other reason than to protect that board.
So I think that's a perfectly defensible position. And I had this conversation on my podcast in the last episode, and there were people who would characterize that position as, you've heard the thing, you've been on the internet, being too credulous about Biden, or, being too comfortable in one's own position in life and not needing enough change and being happy with the status quo. People will say things like that. I think actually that if your priority, if you believe the path to meaningful change is going to primarily come through a kind of, I don't say this dismissively, but a kind of labor incrementalism, meaning there are meaningful labor gains that happen, but are not the type of which would radically transform the system the way that some people want to happen in a shorter term. And the way that some people might argue Bernie Sanders represented his movement as the goal of being, then that's a defensible position. But I have to hold space for the reality that there are people for whom, even as significant as those labor gains are, it's simply insufficient. And what they see when they look at the trajectory of the last 50, 60 years of Democratic Party politics, when they read Listen Liberal and see the longer game the Democratic Party making a concerted choice to back away from labor in a way that has gone on for decades and isn't necessarily turning around as a consequence of Joe Biden having some good NLRB appointments.
So let me actually,
and then I want to jump into it.
So number one, I don't think that in massively increasing union density, I actually don't see that as incremental change. If you look at the chart of the decline in the middle class and the decline of union density, you'd be hard pressed to find a more significant factor.
I made these arguments as well.
But the other piece is, I feel like those same people who are right about the Democratic Party. They were right, right about the analysis in Listen Liberal, right about the fact that you had, this free trade bipartisan consensus, and in large part a union busting bipartisan consensus. Also don't acknowledge that there actually has been a notable shift in the Biden administration. Now, my big issue with the Biden administration, I mean, there's a million of them, right? And on foreign policy, I've got problems. But my biggest issue economically with the Biden administration is the way they've allowed the pandemic relief, the short-term pandemic relief programs to fall away and leave a lot of ordinary Americans in a more precarious financial position now than they were at the beginning of the administration. And that's not nothing. But when I look at the long term, when I look at the fact that, listen, with the Inflation Reduction Act, with the CHIPS Act, with infrastructure investment, you're talking about industrial policy in a way that would have been completely unheard of in the Clinton-Obama era. When you look at not just the NLRB, which I said is like the core for me, but also his antitrust appointments and the fact they're really trying to reverse decades of neoliberal attack on any sort of trust busting, I feel like none of those improvements
If you read theory, read what intellectuals who are banned from Western media. Listen to Kwame Ture. Listen to writings of Black intellectuals and people that they don't want you to hear about. There's a reason why they don't want you to hear about them. And Jimmy actually have a great quote. I love Jimmy's quote on this. If you was a liar, they're not scared of you. They're scared of you when you tell the truth. So there are people who are banned, the people that don't want you to read and listen to. Read those people because they got critiques that will change the way you think about things. Things would be better if they were more focused on what actually politics is: legislation, foreign affairs, diplomacy, material conditions. And if you look at the underlying content of what RBN is about, that's all our content.
Hello and welcome to another strong edition of The Last Review. This is your host, Sergey Fenswick, not my real name. And we have another special episode ahead as we both cover and interview one of the best citizen journalists and activists in modern media, Nick Cruz, and his revolutionary Blackout Network. How are they controversial yet so right all the time? How are they reshaping new media today? Let's have a look. When people argue against the left, they often cite Joe Biden and his policies. It doesn't matter that Joe can't finish the sentence effectively, let alone a platform of policies. It's pretty obvious by now that decisions are coming from the capos in the DNC mafia, who are already bought and paid for by corporate interests, just like their higher-up counterparts on the right.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
People may also point the finger at AOC or the Squad as the leaders on the evil and ubiquitous left. However, any principled person on the left will quickly point out the Squad's failures to live up to any of their promises and their quick subservience and deference to the queen of corruption herself, their mama bear, Nancy Pelosi. They, and those who run cover for them, Kyle Komsky, have proven to be just as corrupt as anyone. Not a lot of people want to address the real concerns of those who have a legitimate foundation in the political left. Maybe it's because those concerns are more about class. Maybe it's because those concerns are more about the truth than there are any left or right dynamic. Maybe it's because people would then have to confront and come to terms with the wisdom of Nick Cruz and Compton J at the Revolutionary Blackout Network. From the seeds of Substack and independent YouTube channels, the Revolutionary Blackout Network, aka RBN, was born when co-founders Compton J, Rome, and Nick Cruz joined forces in early 2021. It was an organization comprised of Black activists and citizen journalists providing political education, community outreach, mutual aid, and get this, self-defense for the working class. They didn't care about participating in round 58 of the culture wars. They cared about justice for the working class. The organization does so much that it defies definition. Their brand of citizen journalism may very well be the future of journalism, period. While there's another episode to be made about the network as a whole with JB and Rome, or the incredibly active and inspirational Savvy Sabs, this review will cover the enormous amount of near-daily live streams and reporting of current events from Nick and Compton J, aka CJ, and their Nick and CJ show. So how does RBN rate as it passes through the analysis matrix? Well, for the accuracy category, RBN's Nick and CJ earn a 23 out of 25. Mediaite was so intimidated by these independent journalists and their brazen regard for the truth that it tried to smear them as propaganda or unreliable. However, say what you want about Nick's outspoken nature, it doesn't change the fact that they are extremely accurate and on target with their assessments on war, international matters, corporate greed, and politicians months ahead of time. While some news folks propped up presidential candidate Marianne Williamson and tried to create Bernie Sanders 2.0 for progressives, RBN interviewed and scrutinized her views so much that she accused them of mansplaining and had a mini meltdown.
But I talked to the Palestinian Community Network, got a lot of Palestinian allies. They will not find that to be an acceptable answer. It's one
Well, I
state.
know.
I don't know. Have one state where everyone have equal rights under the law, because that's been shown many and many times. So I hope you have conversations with Sunday Palestinians. That's a hard matter.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. No. Let me speak.
I just want you can respond to that as well, but because
Contest here of you're telling me you know Palestinians and I don't, so that doesn't work for me.
that's a fair point. But I'm telling you,
So the point is, right now,
on the
Palestine.
solution.
See, if
it's
you're
not
going
gonna
to let
go
me
well.
talk, honey.
We are having a conversation.
These
having a
are no, we're not. No, we're not. You're doing a lot of mansplaining here, and you're telling me what is.
When Elon Musk was portrayed as a free speech warrior and liberator for the people, RBN expressed skepticism and were proven right by some of Twitter X's suppression of many voices that still exists to this day. Nick and CJ are never afraid to go against the grain if that's where the truth leads them. Nick and CJ have also been extremely accurate and ahead of the curve on the Russia-Ukraine war, COVID, workers' rights and strikes, Israel-Palestine, and the nature or direction of individual politicians and even the reporters who cover them. Nick is more likely to make a bold, clever proclamation ahead of time, and CJ is more likely to make an insightful, decisive analysis of what something means as it happens. They complement each other's styles. The only thing keeping them from a perfect score in accuracy is that they cover what they're passionate about. So, some topics just aren't on the table as much as they could be, if at all. They may not cover or may not know some peripheral events or characters. For authenticity, RBN's Nick and CJ break the matrix with a 25 out of 25. Their honesty is, at this point, their trademark. They are impervious to influence. When presidential candidate Cornel West rose in polling over the summer and was perceived as a major candidate, West chose to visit RBN's live streams on several occasions. A respected big-name candidate was friendly with them on the road to a major election. But this didn't stop Nick and CJ from balanced reporting and analysis, pointing out some of his campaign's missteps along the way. Almost needless to say, West does not drop by as much anymore, but RBN marches on. Furthermore, on their authenticity, in a debate over RFK's presidential viability with Craig Pasta Jardula, Nick could have gone for cheap shots or easy points about RFK's credibility. Nick wasn't looking to just win, though. He preferred real substantive conversation and the truth. He brought out fact after fact of RFK's weaknesses and hypocritical stances. And when Pasta got upset with the label Nick bestowed on RFK supporters, Nick did something that had to be seen to be believed. Nick didn't dig in or even double down. He admitted he went too far. That honesty changed the tone of the debate. It went from a debate to a discussion. Authenticity won out. In the originality category, Nick and CJ land another strong score of 24 out of 25. Their nuanced takes on politics, viewing events through the scope of class, produces bold perspectives. Their idea to branch out into mutual aid and helping out individual communities is also unique. Not every journalist has to be an activist, nor should they be, all right? But it's the further proof that these guys walk the walk. They are a productive, helpful voice in the national conversation. Anyone on the air quote left that people on the air quote right should follow for a strong, original take, it should be RBN. For the intrigue category, RBN and Nick and CJ end up with a 20 out of 25. Their format is structured enough, and their explorations of the day's news events are enlightening. However, the live streams still have issues with pacing and scheduling. They still may need some bells and whistles to their programming. This score may improve as the organization and their resources grow. Overall, the Revolutionary Blackout Network and Nick and CJ earn a final score of 93 out of 100. On a daily basis, they investigate and explore the biggest issues in the country.
Priorities as being, I think it's a perfectly legitimate argument, but I have to hold space for the fact that for many people, it simply is inadequate.
Wait, can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me jump in here. So my issue is that many people on the left are, I would say, dishonestly refusing to acknowledge any good things that were done. We could all on the left list, like, here's the 57 things we hate that Biden did. But when something good happens, I'm the only one talking about it, and then I get accused of being a DNC shill. Now, I'm not like, look, I'm not blind. I think in order to be intellectually honest, you have to look at, here's the good things that happen, here's the bad thing that happened. I'm going to give them all to you. And then you could judge how much you value each and which one you weigh more and how that factors into your like voting analysis. But I was like the poster boy back in the day, or people viewed me this way, as like, he's the purity tester. He's like the main purity tester guy. And I didn't vote for Biden in 2020 because I didn't think he would pass my purity test. Now, at the time, people could go back and watch the video. My purity test was super fucking lenient. It was like, if I'm convinced you're going to do like 2 or 3 of the things that I value highly, then I would vote for you. Because I know it's basically down to just the Democrat and the Republican, no matter how much we want to wish the Green Party or libertarians want to wish the Libertarian Party into existence. And so when I look at the record, again, I could list all the bad things, but you just mentioned the NLRB raising overtime pay, or you mentioned the thing where, you know, they automatically recognize the union if the bosses try to bust it up. There's also the overtime pay rule where now it's not $33,000, it's about $55,000 a year, where now you get overtime pay. That's a huge, huge change. Student loan debt reduction, and even Biden even coming back after the Supreme Court tried to slap it down, and he said, no, I'm going to try to do it through the Higher Education Act now. There's little things we could go after him. Oh, the interest rate. Yes, that's bad. I agree with you on that. But we got to recognize that that is, all things considered, a step in the right direction. Pulling out of Afghanistan, he actually had the balls to do it, even when the media was shitting on him relentlessly. And I didn't see anybody on the left coming into his defense at that point.
I saw a lot of people.
I was like the only fucking one. It was like me and Matt Iglesias.
I definitely defended him.
Okay, well then it's like 3 people. I didn't, and all these. Oh, I'm so anti-war. He pulls out of Afghanistan, and it gets messy because that's what happens when you pull out of wars. And all of a sudden, oh my God, you know, it's
I thought that was actually a good moment for the left. I saw a lot of.
Yeah, welcome to a very special edition of the Founders Corner. This is a new series we're going to be doing with the 3 of us. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Rome? What's up, Nick?
What's going on? What's up? We got my boy Rome here. We got the Founders here. It's Friday. We got good reviews going on. What's popping, my friend? What's popping? Make sure you got check the last review out. They're a great channel. They review a lot of good channels. But that clip, man, that shit aged like milk, didn't it? Because for one, I know Rome, you probably want to chime in. I'll pass it to you here soon. But for one, Kyle Kalinske is lying because I seen a clip where before he said that he would never vote for someone who was responsible for the Iraq War. So you see how he lies by omission there? We said, well, first I was just saying all you gotta do is pass my basic litmus test. Is not no. You said before, and
I seen that same video, Nick. So I can be a witness. I remember that video.
Here's a clip where someone it went viral on Twitter where they exposed that Kyle was lying to his audience by omission because he told his audience, "Well, I had this litmus test." No, it wasn't. Back in the day, he said, "I would never support someone who did not support Medicare for all because his dad died because he didn't have health care." And he also said, "I wouldn't support someone who supported the Iraq War." You notice how he went backwards on that? And he would be honest if he told his audience that. If he's like, "Yeah, I'll just be honest, guys. I used to say my limit test was Medicare for all. I used to say it was the Iraq War, but I changed, and this is why." That would be the honest take, even whether we agree with it or not. But what's irritating is he lie about it, CJ. That's what's irritating to me. He's not honest with his audience. That I used to be far to the left. I used to find Medicare for all unacceptable, not supporting that unacceptable. I used to find the Iraq War unacceptable, but now I shifted a little bit to the right as I got more comfortable. But this is my position. I'm explaining. That'd be the honest way, right? But CJ, I know you want to chime in. I'll pass to you and Ron.
Oh, what I was just gonna say is the reason he doesn't do that is I believe he doesn't even remember because none of these things he says on camera are his beliefs. Yeah. They're just things he say. You get what I'm saying? They're not core beliefs. So he'll say stuff and he'll be, oh yeah, I forgot I said that because these are just beliefs. Their beliefs are changeable with the situation. Like you see, our belief of being anti-war hasn't changed between Ukraine and Israel, has it? Theirs seem to have, though, for some reason. Right. You get what I'm saying? So, but go ahead, Rome, if you're going to chime in. I'll bring the video back up in just a second here. But go ahead, Rome.
No, I just love to see, these people get called out, not even by us, just by themselves. That's the beautiful thing because all these lies will catch up one day. All this acting will catch up one day, and we will be here to catch it. We will be here to call it out.
Yeah.
So before you put
go ahead. Up, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to show you guys this. This is the person who reviewed RBN, right? So I found this funny. And he does really insightful interviews and reviews. Look at the bottom. Look to see who got the lowest score.
Oh, Lord.
Kyle Kalinske.
How you lower than that? Wow.
And it's that inauthenticity. Remember, you guys saw how he was judging channels, right? You gotta be authentic, right? That like Kyle Kalinske is absolutely not authentic because if he was, he would do what I said he would do. Like once again, this is a position I don't agree with. But imagine if he came out and said, "I shifted to the right. I used to have Medicare for all. I used to be staunchly anti-war as my litmus test, like Iraq War, but I don't believe that anymore. This is why I'm gonna tell you guys watch it." He don't do that. He does this thing in his analysis. And you see in the intro, he pretends he's always been this way. Like, and Crystal does that as well. I used to say this all the time. No, you didn't. You were making calculated decisions, right? And that's why Kyle Kalinske got a horrific rating, 56 by this guy, because people like Kyle Kalinske they obviously calculating, right? I put it back up. I'll put your screen back up. One more thing I'll mention on the video, as you pull it up, unless you have anything else you want to add. It's a general theme of this segment. I see you here. How these lesser two evil NATO leftist social democrats, they have a lot to answer for. A lot of people who advocate for lesser two evilism, Joe Biden had a lot to answer for because as Crystal Ball is bringing up labor incrementalism, as Bree accurately calls out, you had this that happened. You know how people care about Israel now, but our coverage of Israel mostly haven't changed. We cover it more because so much stuff going on. Like it's a hot issue right now. But our coverage in general haven't changed. I cover Israel every week. CJ, you host with me, right? Every week before October 7th. I had at least one segment a week. At best, once every like 10 days, at worst. You know what I mean? Because this is one of the stories I covered. CJ, remember this because we did mainstreams when I did a series about Abdul Club, where Joe Biden actively covered Israel murdering one of the most prominent Palestinian journalists ever, Shireen Abdul Club. And this is one of the things where if I didn't already have 1,000 red lines on Joe Biden. You know what I mean? If he didn't write the crime bill, if he didn't do all the horrible stuff he already did, like funding the Nazis in Ukraine, this alone would be cancelable. Look at the Shireen Abdul-Akleh killing. Advocates decry abhorrent United States stance. So just to briefly sum it up, you have Israel that executed Shireen Abdul-Akleh. Now a lot of people care about Israel killing journalists because they're doing it at an insane rate. About like 90 journalists I saw at the last count was killed by Israel. I've been covering this, fam. I've been covering this. Where you have Israel, Shireen Abdul-Akleh had a media helmet on, a media vest, and she was taken out by Israeli snipers. And then Israel and the IDF lied. Israel and the IDF said that she was killed by gunfire in a shootout with militants, with terrorists, Palestinian terrorists. So pretty much they put the blame on Palestine for this. And then, of course, you had independent investigations that found that Israel purposely targeted Shireen Abdul-Akleh to the point where the IDF later admitted, it's like 6 or 7 months later, they officially apologized for killing them. But during this entire time, you want to know who was running cover for Israel as they was actively lying? You want to know who to this day still haven't acknowledged that Israel killed Shireen Abdul-Akleh, despite the fact that the IDF admitted they have? The Biden administration. So, CJ, isn't it interesting that this wasn't cancelable by Crystal Ball, who doing amazing performances for Palestine now? Now it's relevant. But you should have been canceled Joe Biden for this. As Joe Biden was killing journalists in Palestine, Crystal Ball is talking about fucking labor incrementalism. And now they want to do a brand shift because they are right. They're riding the wave. You know what I mean? They put their head in the air trying to see where the wind blowing. Mm-hmm. Now they staunch Palestinian activists now. Anyway, I'll pass back to CJ and Rome.
But the problem. Go ahead, Rome. Go ahead, Rome.
I guarantee you this. Like we have seen these people do this before with Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders. I guarantee you they're going to find some way to create a trapdoor back into the Democratic Party for all of you, because it's going to be, look, when people say, and I'm telling you, they're going to be one of the ones who say, well, Trump is going to be worse on this and that and blah, blah, right? Do you want, we got 20,000 people dead. Do you want 40,000 people dead? Right? But when they say shit like that, take it as a threat, because it is. They are threatening you with white supremacy. They are threatening you to stay in your place. Mm-hmm. I guarantee Kyle is going to be one of the ones who's going to create a backdoor back to the Democratic Party, because that's where his brand is safe. It's where the money is at. It's safe there.
You know what? We didn't plan this, and what the two of you just said fits so well with what I was already thinking I wanted to talk about. And us as RBN, we have to start creating record. And that's what I think this stream is going to do. We need to create record. This is not, we're not going to sweep this shit under the rug. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to pay, not pay. I'm sorry. Let me say it a different way, because they didn't pull triggers. So I want my language to match what I'm saying. But somebody, the NATO left needs to answer for 20,000 dead Palestinians. You need to answer for that, because just like in this video that we saw with Bree, Kyle, and Crystal, that was I labeled the most ridiculous debate ever in existence. That was the name of the stream we did. They're advocating and almost upset that people aren't jumping on board with this obvious propaganda game they tried to do with this debate. They knew a bunch of people would like them. This is what I don't like about the professional managerial class being sort of the leading voices on the left, because they're able to create these buzzes where they don't take advantage to, when people have their eye on like this debate, they had all these eyes, they don't take the opportunity to really educate the left. Instead, they do this fucking bullshit that they did here. And you gonna, because you just not a few months before he started killing all these Israel started killing all these people, you guys were saying Joe Biden is the best thing in the world and everybody needs to line up and vote for him. That's what you guys were just saying. And then a few months later, you guys have pie in your face now. where people are like, weren't you just saying this like last week?
And CJ, to shortly add to your
Go
point,
ahead.
and shortly to add to your point, I'll pass it right back to you. Who was there to tell people that the professional managerial class was sacrificing Palestinians? That was a line I use all the time that they really didn't like, and why you don't see me invited on those shows. Because my rebuke to all these people all the time, knowing Joe Biden's staunch Zionist record, knowing the Democratic Party loyalty to the Zionist project, was that even if I was to take your claim at face value, which I don't, of domestic success, let's say we had domestic success, you're doing that off the back and sacrificing Palestinian people. Remember, CJ? How many times I use that argument? I use that argument all the time. And then back then, oh, whatever. I'm a fucking nigga using now they pretend they ride or die Palestinian now. All of a sudden, Crystal Ball is ride or die Palestinian. She was willing to sacrifice Palestinians before, right? But CJ, go. I'll pass it back to you. I don't want to.
No, that is absolutely on point. And go ahead, Ron. Go ahead.
This is the problem that we have with reformists and people who's got loyalty to these parties. They will never tell you guys the truth. They will never tell you guys that we can't reform this. We need a revolution. We need a better way, because they benefit from the system. And like we always say, all of our leaders told us, do not depend on people who benefit from the system to overthrow the system. Why would they? They became millionaires from doing what they are doing. They came there's no way you should be getting richer than your audience. And you shouldn't be that much richer than your damn audience, right? But then, I'm telling you, you need to watch out for these people, because they will be back. They will be back with a different message when they find a bigger boogeyman. Oh yeah, they will be back, and they will be telling you to save people by voting for the Democratic Party.
Right, and let me pull up some tweets here, because now let's go into the presentation. All of that is sort of a preface for the presentation. We're going to include all of what we just said in this segment here in the clip, because it is very important. So we're going to be analyzing a couple of tweets, not too many, and then I'll show a couple of videos here, and we're going to have mostly discussion. But to Nick's point, Crystal Ball is now the designated most radical supporter of the Palestinian people. In just 2 months, she's flipped from wanting to support Genocide Joe to now she's not even saying she's not going to support him. She's just critiquing him. That's it. So don't translate critiques into not support. I've learned that with the professional managerial class. Here's an example right here. Crystal Ball, there is absolutely nothing that can justify things our government is supporting, funding, and providing diplomatic cover for.
What about the NRB? What about the labor, Crystal? Doesn't that you just said that justified it? You just said that, right? Oh, bro, because I've been seeing these tweets, fam. Bro, she went through a whole makeover now. But what's even infuriating, CJ, if we know how this story ends, because I have a long memory, even though most Americans don't. So despite all this fucking posturing that Crystal's doing, because if you go through her timeline, we're gonna find most of her tweets agreeable on like the face of what she's saying, right? But I promise you, you're gonna have September gun roll next year. Then I'm saying October gun. All of a sudden, we 30 days from the election. All of a sudden, 15 days and Donald Trump might win the presidency. Then you got all these ads quoting Trump and all the crazy stuff he says. Trump might fucking post something crazy on Truth Social, and Crystal Ball is gonna forget all about this shit, and she's gonna fucking use this radical energy that she's in, radical clout that she's building for herself during this Palestinian resistance moment. She's gonna use that, and then she's gonna funnel that into the people that killed the Palestinians. I promise you, fam. Crystal and a lot of these people are gonna do that. We see who's gonna make the face turn. This is a good time for people to make the big face turn. Let's see who's gonna get this right. But
this is
right, because they don't feel bad. They don't feel bad from the 20,000 dead. They feel embarrassed because all these shit is out in the open. So now they're trying to save face more than anything. They don't care about these people. They don't even care about the people inside of our own borders. If they did, they would stop telling black and brown people to shut the fuck up and vote. They would stop well, let me say this. They would stop finding fancy ways of telling black and brown people to shut the fuck up and vote.
Yeah, they want a ceasefire so they can celebrate Biden. You guys saw them like they shoot their load early on that. So I remember when they had that temporary pause. A lot of people showed their hand like, see, this is why we wanted. If Trump was there instead of Biden, this is what happened. So they want a ceasefire more than anything, just so they can tell people like, see, I told you guys that Biden not.
Isn't that pretty despicable? That is pretty despicable. What I like what you said though, Nick, and this is where I feel like RBN is in a teacher moment here, because no one else would bring up this topic of building radical clout, because the people who are building the radical clout, of course, are not going to self-reflect and say this is a bad thing. But this is what the pseudo left does in these moments where they know they have no power, but they want to project in order to gather those radical people. They go, oh, so this is what she's doing. I'm radical. I'm saying, going all out to say all these things about Palestinians, right? To build that clout in those people who are most radical, to build that believability, I guess it would be a better word, build that believability, and then use that believability to talk some of those people into supporting the establishment. That's what they do. They all do it, from Marianne Williamson to the Bernie Sanders industrial complex to the people that you see on this graphic right here. There's a reason I picked the people to put on this graphic. Marianne Williamson. I mean, I'm trying to think, this is like an all-star team of the white moderate. You got Marianne Williamson, Ryan Grimm, David Sirota, of course, the Vanguard boys. You got Kyle Kalinske, AOC, Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland, like David Dole, TYT. Like this is an all-star team, and all of these people maybe at some point is saying supportive words about Joe Biden in comparison to Donald Trump. But now they want to project like they're all for Palestinians at this.
I give one person their you know what I'm saying? One person held his ground, David Pacman. He don't give a fuck. He's a he don't give a fuck. And you want to know what's so crazy? Because he was like that even back when I used to watch him. I always disagreed with him back then on it. And Crystal was like that. Crystal was actually married to somebody, and we have pictures of her holding up a something for Israel, peace, something.
I remember what you're talking about.
This is what they do when it's not in the news, when it's not being talked about by everybody, when it's not clickable and can't make you money. They ain't talking about that shit. They all for one.
Crystal still demonizes Palestinian resistance. Like when she's criticizing Israel, she still do the nonsense about, oh yeah, I don't approve what Hamas did. Like, and that's what the Palestinian Community Network came on our show and condemned, CJ. You have Palestinian freedom fighters they are tired of people like Crystal Ball, who they criticize Israel for clout, but then they condemn Palestinian resistance victories. You guys understand? They oppose the apartheid state of Israel, but then when the Palestinian resistance get a victory, they condemn the victory. You guys understand that the Palestinian resistance view them as just as big an obstacle as the Zionists? That's what they tell me on my shows.
They're not the white moderate to them. They're the white moderate to them. They're not just a white moderate to black folks or indigenous people. They're not just a white moderate. Look what they're doing to our Latinos brothers and sisters on immigration right now, selling us out. Freaking John Fetterman flipped. Now he's not a progressive. But read this. Let me read this. Yeah, but this tweet also speaks to what she believes isn't going to be important. She's saying Biden losing to Trump now among young voters because so many are disgusted with his unconditional support for Israel. Now this unconditional support, this is another sort of thing they like to use, unconditional. This is something they use to separate them from corporate Democrats that are calling, well, we want conditions on money going to the genocidal Israel. Like, what does that do? We want conditions on the slave owners. What the fuck does that do? No, motherfucker, eliminate slavery. Don't put conditions on slave owners, on plantation owners. Is absolutely absurd. Yeah, and now let me go to my tweet that kind of spurred this idea today, because I had 3 other stories, and I added this 4th story as the main story, and that's this tweet here. It took 3 days to kind of get to 1,000 likes. The first day it was like at 100, and then people started reading into it like, I guess they start going, I ain't for this shit, or they start seeing the bodies pile up, like, I'm with CJ here. Now let me read it. It says, none of, and this I'm literally speaking to the people on the picture now. This is who I'm speaking to, so let me just make sure that's clear. The people that are on this graphic right here, and I'm going to leave the graphic up so I can read this to them. None of the outrage you're expressing about the genocide in Palestine matters if all you're going to do is vote for Joe Biden in November and tell people to vote for Joe Biden in November. Don't pretend like you're down with the Palestinians today, but in 2024 you in 2024 you vote for the guy that's funding and supporting the genocide that right now you're so courageously fighting against. So that's the tweet that kind of spurred this idea. It's been bubbling, Nick, because you and I were extremes. Well, you're right, because he wasn't white. That's what I use the word white. That's why I took him out of the picture. He was there first. And he's there in another graph that's similar. But because I use the term white, and I know people are gonna say he's Mexican, I know people are gonna say that. So I was like, let me just take it out. I'm just trying to get those responses. Let me just take this shit out now, so I'm gonna get this guy them responding to that. But the point being that I wanted to make, it's not just Crystal. So I'm not, I can bring up other people's texts from Emma Vigeland is another one who's doing a lot of like boo-hooing right now, but she's gonna tell people to go vote for Joe Biden. He's the climate president alone, remember. But these people never pay for these decisions, these oopsies, I'm sorry, I just made a mistake with John Fetterman. Really? Because he's in there another 5 years voting for Israel now. You're a mistake. You see what your mistake did? And I'll pass it to you, Nick. It looked like you were going to chime in, or I heard somebody say something.
I think I was wrong. Rome, you want to add anything?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
All right.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you.
All right,
man.
so let me go to the next part here, because there's a couple of more receipts I want to show. Actually, before I get to this one, I do want to go back to the Kyle thing, because in the first 90 seconds of the debate they had, Bree says something I did want to make sure we address. Not we, but that I address here, and that's this one right here. So let's listen to 90 seconds. Then I have another video as sort of a receipt to combat what's said in this 90 seconds.
On multiple times, and he just hasn't come on yet. And this goes all the way back to when he launched.
Mm-hmm.
We invited him on. He hasn't come on. We get ranked choice voting. I think they kind of automatically become a lot more viable. So I'd like to help out in that process. But if I'm in a swing state and it's Biden versus Trump, I'm at the point now where I don't even think it's a tough call. I would definitely vote for Biden. Because either in that situation, even if other people are running, either the Democrat or the Republican is going to win. And in my estimation, Biden has definitely passed what I would describe as my bare minimum purity test. And I think if it's him or Trump, or even him or DeSantis or anybody, he just blows them out of the water. And so I think I'd happily vote for Biden.
Now, let me say this, because with this sort of logic, how do you ever get the Democratic Party to change? Like, if Joe Biden can go out and facilitate the murdering of 20,000 Palestinians, and then you make the calculation where he's better than Trump, how is that going to stop the Democratic Party from funding the next genocide that's going to be 30,000? You see how they're like, where's the end point to this logic? But this is not the only point. Let me let it play, and let's listen to Bree, the next part.
So I similarly was voting for Jill Stein in New York in 2016.
I did the same.
And I also happen to believe that strategically it makes the most sense to apply pressure to the Democratic Party by voting for not Biden in a primary, Marianne Williamson is obviously the most progressive candidate in the primary, and then vote for Cornel West in the general. And I know there are a lot of people in my audience who are frustrated by that plan because they think that it takes something away from Cornel West's run, or it affirms the Democratic Party in some way to vote for Marianne Williamson running as a Democrat. I don't feel that way. I feel it's a little hypocritical to have that position, given that we all just enthusiastically voted for Bernie twice in the primary the last 2 rounds. You can make a distinction saying that Bernie was an independent and he always identified as an independent, and Marianne Williamson doesn't have that kind of cloak of distance from the Democratic Party. You can say what you want. I don't see those things as mutually exclusive in the least. So
Gotcha. All right. So that's the point I do want to kind of touch upon. If you wanted to comment before I bring up this other video, because due dissidence does. Go ahead, Rom. Go ahead, Rom.
I honestly feel like you guys are wasting time that we don't have. Like, and it sucks because a lot of people have potential, or they so smart that they just get stuck. It's like a ceiling above them when it comes to actually organizing or pushing for a better life. You guys, we don't live that long. We don't live that long, and if the best thing that we can do is live loud. But to sit here and try to, let's try to vote for somebody and vote for somebody, like what do this do? Because we still have the FBI, the CIA, the IMF. We have organizations that's put in place to keep certain people in place. So how and what can you do to actually, what can Marianne Williamson do against the CIA? What they haven't done to, like, what they're going, she gonna get JFK? She gonna go out like a martyr? And she gonna really pass Medicare for all with all of these insurance companies and got so much money into our Congress, into our government? What are you actually doing? And we are wasting time. We don't have voting, because that's all you can do, because nothing else get done in between. That's all I wanted to say. Whether it be for Mrs. Williamson or RFK, Cornel West, you decide your life. You control your life. And dog, stop wasting time. It's nobody you can vote for. You have all the power that you need. And I keep telling you guys, all you guys coming to me complaining about your neighborhoods. Oh, well, I'm trying to, but everybody said Trumpster. Well, try harder and get out there and control your neighborhood, because they already poisoned your water. They already poisoned your food, Democrats and Republicans. So it's just a waste of time, y'all. I'm telling you, this is a pyramid scheme.
My bad, Ron. So I did want to sort of counter what said there, because the left has to be an example. We can't. I think it was a Jamu. Like, we can't. No, it was Shama Sawant who said something like this when it was an interview with Bree, and she was like, the reason I can't support people like, it's like, we have to project to the working class people, no illusions here. So it matters. If we're just a regular person that people aren't looking at, like if you didn't know who CJ was, I'm just regular James, which was the first 40 years of my life before anybody knew CJ. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But if I have a mic and I got, thousands of people listening to me, that matters what I do. It matters what I do. And the professional managerial class just hasn't picked up on that yet. But I love how Due Dissidence breaks it down. It's about 2 minutes here I want to play, that they break this down on her. And I'm merging. And then it's another video where Sabby Sab and Norm Finkelstein talks about Marianne Williamson. It's kind of, so think about that in this too. I know it's two things, but this addresses both. And I just wanted to make sure everybody's cognitive. I'm going to use this for another thing I'm going to do later.
Vote for Marianne. I promise you, I don't care if you vote for Marianne. I don't care if anybody else votes for Marianne. I have a vote. I am living in DC. I would rather use it to vote against Joe Biden. I'm not voting for RFK.
Say again?
Do you have the time slot where he starts his criticism of Marianne? Because he kind of destroys her.
Oh,
Anyway.
this is not that one yet. This is not that one yet.
Oh, cool. Go ahead. Proceed.
Yeah. The time I have the video, the Sabby clip. I don't have the whole video.
Okay.
I don't know if you were looking for the whole thing.
But
no, this is to talk about what she was just saying about it doesn't matter that she's supporting Marianne. When it does, and they break it down on why it does matter, and I love how they break it down here. Let's listen.
Marianne Williamson, and then voting for our Cornel West in the general election. This seems to be the most obvious, least controversial statement in the history of left politics. But
I'm sorry, and for those that didn't see this, because Rome may not have saw this, I know you may have not seen this whole interview. So what happened was Bree interviewed Norm Finkelstein, and Norm Finkelstein, and they had a regular conversation, very cordial, just about left sort of things. At the end, when the show is already over, and you know how they say, "Oh, do you have any last thoughts?" He says, "Let me just give you a bit of criticism" on his way out. And this is her reaction. His criticism is Marianne Williamson ain't it. And she explodes in this manner. And listen to the.
But apparently, I've stepped on a third rail.
Okay, the reason why it's not irrelevant,
and this is her martyr thing. This is her martyr thing. She's like, I stepped on a third rail. Everyone's coming at me. You get paid very well for what you do, and this comes with the gig. For somebody who is admirably aware of her own privilege, she nonetheless cannot help to demonstrate it whenever she gets put upon, as in this case.
I also just have to add the reason why it's relevant, the reason why, your support for Marianne is not irrelevant is, very much signified by the events of the past 36 hours, right? Like if you're going to support a candidate with no chance to win, it is important to do so in a way that at least defines whatever movement you're trying to build on terms that we can all agree to. And Marianne Williamson, just like RFK, I mean, she's better than RFK on this. Everybody's better than RFK on this. But Marianne Williamson, like 99% of elected Democrats and Republicans in America, Netanyahu's better than RFK on this, right? Exactly. She's terrible on this issue. And obviously, Norm Finkelstein lost his career over taking a stand on this issue, right? And so that's why it's important. That's why it is important. Right. And the idea that there's anything strategic about registering your discontent with the Democratic Party, like the Democratic Party gives a fuck about your discontent or anybody else's discontent. If there's anyone in America who's best positioned to have understood this by now, it's Brianna Joy Gray. She worked on the Bernie 2020 campaign. Like, what don't you understand about they don't give a fuck?
They wipe their ass with your discontent.
Exactly. They don't fucking care.
Great, masterful point made by our brothers over at Due Dissidence, because it does matter. And I'm saying that to say, not just Marianne Williamson, it matters if you vote for Joe Biden, especially after this massacre that's occurring in Palestine. It matters because what's going to happen is what Rome has already said. And Nick too alluded to this. In a few months, they're all going to be saying, or no, I think Rome used the term trapdoor. In a few months, they're going to pull out a trapdoor that leads everybody back to the Democratic Party. Yeah. And that's problematic for us. Go ahead, Nick, if you wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Crystal Ball gave away the game in the debate that we played in the intro. She said, yeah, technically I'm supporting Marianne Williamson, but let's be honest, it's going to be Biden in the end. So, on the RBN, we told you guys that Marianne Williamson is very problematic because a lot of Marianne Williamson supporters are just Biden supporters that are taking a pit stop. You know what I mean?
All right.
And it was
never.
That's classic. That is classic, Nick.
and it was never a serious campaign to challenge power. It was a book tour. And if we're gonna have a real movement for change, we have to be. Yeah, go ahead, Rome. Go ahead. We have to be smart as a left-wing movement on how we spend our resources. Crystal Ball and them, they want us to unlimitedly spend our resources. I don't know if you saw this, CJ, because these kind of tweets show you the seriousness of people like Marianne Williamson. She's still celebrating these polls, fam. Look at this. I'm glad you did it. Because I'm like, what are you guys doing? Because here's a national primary. Once again, the national polls don't even matter on primaries for one. You got primaries that are not going to exist because Democrats are canceling them. But Marianne Williamson and her supporters don't want you to know that. They want to trick workers into donating to Marianne Williamson and supporting her candidacy, even though she's running in a rigged primary, which she stand no chance, wasting our time and our resources. So here, Marianne Williamson at a clean 13%. I don't know if you guys are good at math, but that's not enough to win an election, right? And we have primaries coming up in a few weeks. So you would think that if you're a candidate, you want to win an election, you would see this number. You'd be like, oh, fuck, this is bad. We need to get going. This is not time to celebrate. Oh, nope, we got Marianne Williamson. And she see this number, and she says, as I was saying, what you saying? You getting destroyed. What are you talking about? You guys see how she's celebrating? Look, this person said, you're getting smoked, bro. Why are you celebrating? As I was saying. He said, as I was saying, as you're not down by 50 fucking points only a few weeks ago into Iowa.
Oh, God.
Or South Carolina, wherever, because Democrats got a different order, right? So I'm bringing this up to show you guys how this was never serious. You only celebrate getting 13% and not having a chance to win if your intentions is to sell a book. If your intentions is to sell a book, you celebrate 13%, CJ.
Yep.
I was a legitimate presidential candidate. Now I got a book. Well, you got 13%, you can say you were a legitimate candidate. That's what they need. They just need to hit that 13%. Once they hit 13%, they legitimize. They can sell the book. That's what Marianne Williamson is celebrating. So she see that number. She's like, yes. She don't give a fuck she losing. Yes. I did it. I didn't get absolutely, completely embarrassed. At least I got a number registered, right? Anyway, so John, pass it to you. This just showed the mindset of people like Marianne Williamson celebrating mediocrity in a job horribly done. Go ahead, CJ.
That's because in order for that book tour, if her numbers goes up, then she's more in the conversations where she can stretch out her book tour. She can stretch out her, 20 minutes of fame, 15 minutes of fame, whatever that phrase is. But now let's play this because I don't know how I missed this, so I'm a week late. Good, Nick. I watched this about 10 times. Laugh hard every single time I see this.
I haven't seen this clip yet.
This is Norm Finkelstein. I hope I'm saying this right. I'm Norman Finkelstein. On the Sabby Sab show, it's a clip where Sabby is asking. Let me actually read her whole tweet here. It is, oh wait, is this the right one? Hang on, there's two. Let me make sure I got the right one. There's this one. No, this is it. Okay, this is it. There's this one where. So she has him on, and this question is, how do you feel about some of the candidates? Now, this is how he feels about Marianne Williamson. Now, Nick, what happens a lot with RBN? We say things months in advance. We're just silly little Negroes. Nobody listens to us, or they call us being divisive. And then Shama Sawan, Ajamu, somebody that they respect says the exact same thing, almost verbatim. Then it's received. We don't get any apologies about that. Now, listen to Norman here, and you don't tell me a lot of what he says about Marianne Williamson is the exact same thing people said we were being divisive about.
I want to get your opinion, Norm, about some of the presidential candidates I feel get this issue incredibly wrong. And I feel like some of them, like RK Jr., for example, I feel like he's doing it on purpose. I feel like he knows the truth, but I feel like he's trying to keep AIPAC off of his back.
You just described were simply not the case. Israel is not an occupying force in Gaza. Israelis can't even go into Gaza. Hamas, they cannot even go in. Now the soldiers are in there because of this war that you and I both disagree with.
They're before October 7th.
Excuse me?
They were there before October 7th.
No, Israelis cannot even go. I'm not in any way arguing that the blockade of Gaza was not a good thing. However, Hamas, not all of the misery of the Gazans is due to Israel.
First of all, I'm not politically correct, so I'm just going to speak my mind. Marianne Williamson is an airhead, and I don't see why anyone should take into account anything she has to say about anything. Okay, she's good at self-help. Fine. If I needed self-help, I would go to Marianne Williamson. Well, I haven't a clue why she's commenting on these subjects. She has no idea what she's talking about. I really wish Marianne Williamson, I'm sorry, I'm getting sick of this. I wish she would just shut up. Because she hasn't a clue what she's talking about. So
God, you can tell, like,
hilarious.
And you don't have to go back, but if you guys look at the clip again, when Norman Finkelstein was listening to Marianne Williamson say that there's not occupation of Gaza, his face was like, what the actual fuck am I listening to right now? And I can tell that he had anger building up. But he's more respectful than us, right? Like, he's not gonna just fly off the handle like we would. Like, he just, nigga, I'm seething, bro. He's trying to maintain his composure. And then after a while, he can't hold it in anymore. And that's where the shut up line comes in.
Oh
Savvy is very
that
professional.
was hilarious.
Savvy trying not to crack up. See, this is why Savvy better because she's more professional. I would have started dying. I was
there's no way I could have hold that shit. Yeah, there's no way I could have hold that.
Because
it felt like he did that for me. It felt like like I'm living through him, like my pent up rage. Yes, like my pent up rage about this whole thing too. Like he did that for me. Like, hey, he was my anger translator. I felt it. But let me let the video finish, and then we can close this segment and move on to your stuff.
Why she's commenting on these subjects? She has no idea what she's talking about. I really wish Marianne Williamson, I'm sorry, I'm getting sick of this. I wish she would just shut up. Because she hasn't a clue what she's talking about. So she should just I'm sorry for raising my voice. I'm not supposed to do that, but I'm tired.
Oh, God.
I just wish she would shut up. Because she hasn't a clue what she's talking about.
Oh, Lord.
And she speaks with such authority. Like she's a graduate of a girls' finishing school. She speaks with such authority. Authority about what? Ms. Williamson, have you read a single book on the subject? Have you read a single human rights report on the subject?
You're mansplaining.
Have you read a single economics report on the subject? Then what are you talking about?
My Lord, Nick, I'm laughing at this every time I see that. That is absolutely classic. Absolutely classic, man. But go ahead. Any final words on the topic that the NATO left? I mean, anything you want to sort of chime in on. But the basic of the whole segment is we cannot let this go under the rug. We cannot. Like, somebody needs to take account for what they're doing, and in a few months, you're not gonna be telling people to vote for no damn Joe Biden after he didn't let 20,000 people, Palestinians die. But go ahead.
The same way we cut the legs out of the Marianne Williamson campaign for that shit even got started. That's what's gonna happen with Biden 2024. Like, it's not going to be this thing where, and this is how independent left media has been for quite some time. Where you endorse Biden, that's cool. It's cool. We all going to be good. Oh, yeah, you support Hillary, it's all good. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. If you're supporting John Fetterman, we're going to criticize you. Like, there's people who's friendly with us before, and then they start boosting John Fetterman, and we like, you guys lost your damn mind. Same with Marianne Williamson. We're going to be here to remind people that lesser to evilism is not acceptable. The same way we're not going to let them forget about advocating for Biden and the slaughter, the butcher Blinken. I'm not going to let them forget about the Ukraine war. Like, Kyle was completely wrong about the Ukraine war as well. So now Europe, the EU, NATO, hell, even the Washington Post. I got to see if I can find this headline where the Washington Post literally took the war in Ukraine segment out. They quietly removed that section, and then it's over, fam. They don't have a section on anymore. So the West gave up on the Ukraine war. They realized that we need to start the process of negotiating peace talks. So a few part of the NATO left, they are the people who did not believe that. They are the people who agree with the neocon establishment that we need to fight Putin to the last Ukrainian. But the establishment switched their opinion on this. So what happens to the Bernie left now? Do they change with the establishment, or do they maintain a hawkish position on Russia? Do they outflank the establishment from the right now? And if you don't, if you agree with the government now, if you say, "Oh yeah, well I agree, we need to end the Ukraine war," why do you wait until the establishment gave you permission to advocate for peace? So CJ, this is a question I'm gonna keep asking for years and years and years. Every single time I come across someone who considers themselves on the left, or anyone in general who support Ukraine, why do you wait until the United States lost interest in the war? Why do you wait until the Washington Post, the New York Times, and all these people say we should advocate for peace until you advocate for peace? Because what a lot of these NATO leftists do, they wait until they get permission to the establishment to be radical. A lot of people didn't wait. They didn't support Medicare for All until they had an establishment person like Bernie Sanders who supported Medicare for All. That's the lens in which they operate on over the window. But anyway, we move to this story. This will be my only story today. I'll get it 3, so I'll pass it to you after this. But this is a strip because I've been explaining to you how Zionism is the biggest threat to the rights of Americans, because Israel is tanking in the polls after the October 7th attack. They are isolated on the global stage. So you have Israel that is fucking getting decimated on public relations front. So because of that, you have people who had to crack down on free speech. They had to create psyops about anti-Semitism because they are panicking because they're losing the control of the conversation, because people are realizing that there are organizations called AIPAC who infiltrated our elections and infiltrated our democracy. A lot of people realizing that the United States has a hostile foreign power that is actively interfering in our elections. You know what they said about Russia and China? You know how they said Russia and China is interfering in our elections? So George Santos, he's out. Because George Santos, he committed the great sin, CJ. He told a lie. He told a few lies. And you know we don't tolerate lies in Washington, D.C. Oh, they're so adorable, aren't they? People really believe that. That's the stated reason. We don't allow liars in Washington. Anyway, that's children. Children believe this shit. Children believe this. So they got rid of George Santos. And now they have a special election. And you want to know who the GOP candidate is? The GOP candidate is an Israeli citizen and an IDF veteran who declares her first priority in Congress will be to represent Israeli interests. She also blames Biden for October 7th. So, an Israeli military veteran, here's a few headlines. An Israeli military veteran tapped that GOP candidate in special election to replace George Santos. Here's another one. Some won't like seeing a former Israeli soldier running for Congress, but I know the vast majority will be with me. So we have a GOP candidate that is straight up advocating, and she is admitting that her number one priority will be to advocate for another country. Meanwhile, liberals are talking about Russiagate. They talking about China. You know, China is the country they're accusing of now. Apparently, Cuba is interested in our election too. Missing Iran. A lot of people interested in our elections. Like, this is the new PSYOP, CJ. China, you know it's the day. Like, this is what they're running now. So they had all this time to figure this out, but they just now figuring this out, CJ, right before our election. Isn't that funny? How these headlines, this is last election. This is 2022, CJ, but they just now report on this right in time for the next election. Isn't that funny? China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. Isn't it interesting? All the countries that the United States just so happen to hate, they all try to meddle in the 2022 election. All the countries that hate us, they are extremely invested in what happens to our day-to-day midterm elections. So, CJ, according to this fucking intelligence assessment, they're not even meddling during the presidential election, which makes no sense, because it at least makes sense to meddle in the presidential election because that's the executive who control foreign policy. No, they're not even going that far. They say these people care about like house races and shit. They care about ordinary races. So this is what they want liberals to think. This is how they get liberals on the neocon train. I explained many times before. They got different strategies. You know what I mean? When you want to get the right wingers on board, oh, the scary Chinamen are coming. China is coming. Oh my God, be afraid of China. You can't have non-white people on top. And then like, nigga, let's go to war with China. To get liberals on board, you say, oh my God, Russia is invading the sovereignty of our elections. China, hey, it's liberals. You know China's mailing in our election? And also you got the liberals saying they want to go to war with China too. You got to see how they do different things to get people on board on war.
Yeah.
And now they got the new woke imperialism. Isn't that funny? What is it? You know how LGBTQ or whatever, people are mistreated in Palestine, even though gay marriage is not legal in Israel. But they would say, oh, look at how Palestine treat gay people, so we're allowed to bomb their hospital and children. That's another strategy. They learned they got to get the liberals, the neocons, and they also got to get the woke imperialists as well. These are the Bernie Sanders, right? The progressives. So as they're running this pretend headline, pretending that we have fucking all these other countries that are trying to invade our democracy, you actually have AIPAC that's pledging $100 million to influence the elections next year. We have people who are literally Israeli citizens, literally IDF soldiers that are claiming they're going to represent Israel running. So before I pass to you guys, I know you guys think about that. Nick, you being dramatic. Yeah, we know Israel's trying to take over our democracy right now, but it's a democracy, right? So Nick, why are you complaining? If you don't like her, why not just vote for the Democrat? If you don't want the pro-Israel candidate, surely there's going to be a Democrat in the race to give people options just in case they don't want a candidate loyal to Israel, right? Oh, God damn it. Meet Tom Soazy, the opposition to the pro-Israel candidate, the GOP House candidate Mazi Pillow, who's the right-wing choice. And the funny thing is, you know about her, they chose her for a reason because she's not a relevant legislator. And all the articles, they would mention she was a small-time legislator. You know why they chose her? Because remember how George Santos lied about being Jewish, being part of the IDF and all that stuff? George Santos lied about his close Israeli ties. So then they found a brown person who actually is a Zionist. So isn't it funny how the GOP and the Republicans claim they don't like identity politics, but they are the first people to play it? Because CJ, you know what the messaging they have right now? Because I got a hotspot video coming out on this. I digged into this. This is very funny to me. So now they're doing this thing as we got a woman of color who actually cares about Israel in our election. So isn't it funny how the right wing claims they don't like identity politics, but they always love to use it when it applies to them, like Tim Scott. But anyway, back to Tom Soazy. Look at this headline. Tom Soazy, I looked into, he gave an interview last Friday, CJ, where he said he would never condition aid to Israel. So let's think about this. In New York, you got a choice between an IDF soldier who pledged loyalty to Israel or a Democrat who swears loyalty to Israel. Isn't our democracy nice? And the last headline I read, because that's pretty much the end of this story and presentation, and I get you guys in here. Look at this headline, which is, this isn't Politico, but it could be an Onion. This is an Onion headline as far as I'm concerned, CJ and Rome. Support for Israel at the heart of crucial New York election. Do you guys see what's wrong here? In a New York election, the number one issue about to be Israel. An election about the state of the people of New York, you got two candidates that are about to out-Israel each other. It's so bad, CJ. AIPAC put out a statement where they said they are not going to endorse in this race. So you know how pro-Israel you have to be as a Democrat for the AIPAC lobby not to endorse a former IDF fucking soldier? So both Republican Masi Melissa Phillip and Democrat Tom Soazy are staunch supporters of Israel. This is the United States of Israel, fam. Now, this is the last part, and this pretty much be presentation and text, and we wrap it. Now, this is our democracy in a nutshell. And the funny thing is, political writes this, and they don't realize they're writing political parody. They don't realize they're writing Onion level shit. Do you guys care about the constituents in New York? No, for Israel. Look at this. There's not an inch of daylight between Sozi and Philip on this issue, on support for Israel, they say. That what Lawrence Levy said. But the Democratic Party is seeing younger voters at odds with Israel. A spokesperson for AIPAC told Politico in a statement, both candidates have reflected the overwhelming bipartisan support for Israel's fight to remove Hamas in Gaza. So both candidates are pro-genocide. AIPAC did not respond to question whether it spend money or endorsing the special election. Our money, and this is part we're talking about here. This is the last part I read. This is the Republican Party sounding like woke liberals, which is why I don't generally buy the right-wing talking point on this issue, because the right, they position themselves as the anti-woke party. I'm like, no, you're not. The Republican Party is white identity politics. I've been saying this since the start of RBN. When people say RBN, you talk about race too much. I know Republicans talk about race too much. They talk about anti-white racism all the time. That's their number one concern. Like people like Tucker Carlson, they talk about how much they don't like race, but they talk about anti-white racism. That's the big. They love that. That's a big issue for them. Now, the Republican Party is saying our party is going to nominate an immigrant, a woman of color, a woman who's deeply religious. That's another identity politics point that Republicans use. How is this any different from wokeism, fam? That been put by Republicans? Because they also say she's deeply religious, and this is a general argument I use, and I pass to you guys. Because people say, "Well, Democrats only want to use identity." Do they? Do they though? How many Republicans run on the concept of how much they love Jesus, how much they are evangelical Christian? Oh man, I got my Bible, I got my gun, and I'm gonna go out and shoot. That's a form of identity politics. That's them signaling versus signaling. Hey, I'm a Christian. I'm a white Christian, and you should support me because of that. And what do white Christians do? They support the white Christian because he's a white Christian. How is that different from liberal identity politics? And that way you get on the right. That's my only presentation of the day. CJ Rome. Anything?
Yeah. I'll let Rum go and then I'll say my comments because I have a receipt with my comment. But go ahead.
I don't even know what the fuck to say. Nick already bodied it. I'm like,
I had a lot to say about this. So
yeah, because he probably did a lot of research. So then I'll give my.
I usually like to do the hotspot videos are like 2 minutes or less. I like to do the hotspot and now do like a longer version because I couldn't even explain there was a lot I couldn't even explain in that video. This story beyond parody. But go ahead, CJ, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, because we have Zionists against Zionists. Now, to be frank, this has already been happening. Zionists against Zionists. This dynamic in all of the races has been happening. But now, with the temperature as it is, what's going on with the Israel-Palestine conflict, takes a lot of heightened sort of sensibility. So now we have these people who are being very radically Zionists to prove to Israel that we are the future candidate that you can buy in the United States, right? Now, what's going to come along with that? And I got this from Nick. I think this is Nick tweet. Yeah. What's going to come along with radically Zionist candidates moving to being elected in the United States? Don't you think that's going to come with censorship like it's not already here? Now, let's listen to this video. It's short. It's less than a minute, where it's a report about the censorship paid for by Zionists, the same Zionists that's paying for candidates that we're talking about in New York State. Let's listen.
Human Rights Watch says Meta has silenced posts in support of Palestine on Instagram and Facebook. It says the suppression is systemic and global, amounting to what seems to be the largest wave of censorship of content about Palestine to date. The rights group reviewed 1,050 cases of online censorship from more than 60 countries. They were largely in English. Nearly all of them featured peaceful content in support of Palestine. The organization says that in more than 300 cases, users were unable to appeal Meta's removal of content or accounts effectively. It's identified 6 patterns of censorship: content removal, suspension or permanent disabling of accounts, and restrictions on liking, commenting, sharing, or reposting. It's also found restrictions on tagging or following other accounts, limited use of certain Meta features, and shadow banning users. That means a significant drop in the visibility of their posts, stories, and accounts.
Now, ask yourself, why would Meta, Facebook, do this? Who are they getting instructions from to do this? The Zionists. Now, to wrap it up, and we can bring this this segment to a close, why this matters with the New York State and their Zionists versus Zionists is that we must recognize the heightened situation we're in right now. The Zionists have decided that, wow, we didn't realize there were so many people against us in the world. Now it's time to use our money and press the levers of levers of influence that we have all around the world. So they're going to be electing very pro-Zionist candidates because of people like the Squad, who are very milquetoast. That's what makes me so mad. It's not like they're getting people who are already not supporting them. The Squad already supports them, but they want somebody in their language also supporting them. And that means censorship is coming. Censorship is here, actually, really. We've already been talking about it.
I was about to bring that up because they had on TikTok, man, they are messing these kids' pages up. They took down like 900 something pages, and they are really trying to censor these people from sharing knowledge. And this is a recipe for disaster, because if anything, all you're gonna do is get people outside and start talking to each other. Because if I can't talk to you, you know, on the internet, somebody gonna hear this. You know, somebody needs to hear this. You know, and these kids not having that. This generation isn't like how we was, like how the older millennials was, or like Generation X. They are loud and they want to live in a world without war. They want to live in a world without having to take resources from another country, you know, without trade unfairly. You know, we got to do this just. And I believe that the kids is gonna they're gonna beat this censorship, because they miscalculate. They miscalculate in who the hell we are and how much passion we have in this, how much we don't want to see this, and how much we want it to stop overall. So they can try, but the people always prevail. That's why I know that for sure, because they already tried that shit multiple times with different groups of people.
Yeah, and I'm just, what's the best way to put it? I guess I'm glad I'm vindicated in the way I am, I guess. And I'm also glad that the illusion is gone. Because what have I talked about for, I guess, the inception of RBN? Because ever since RBN started, that where the right wing did a free speech gimmick, right? Where they pretend they were for free speech. I was on System Update with Glenn Greenwald, where I explained in many different shows that I don't think the right is for free speech. And what is the example I use all the time? The example I use all the time was Israel. I was on Glenn's show. I remember I was like, yo, the right wing not gun free speech when it comes to Israel. Like, look at Ron DeSantis when he banned BDS. That's what I brought up all the time. And now Glenn is viciously going after these people because he's playing on the show. He's like, yo, I was in solidarity with these people. I thought we agreed on free speech. Fox News had him on. They were talking about free speech. And now he's like, bro, he's disgusted at these people who turn their values on them. But this is exactly what we was warning about. I accurately pointed out from the beginning of my time as a political analyst that Zionists and Zionism is the biggest threat to our rights as Americans. It's the biggest hostile foreign threat that we deal with. And now one of the reasons why they're able to give, and this is the only reason I'm bringing this up in response to the TikTok banning and people being censored. That is 100% manufactured by the Zionists, which is, it drives me crazy how brilliantly evil they are. You know what I mean? They are so brilliantly evil. I'm like, God damn, I know exactly how this shit works. And I know why we had a hard time dealing with it. Because they got this organization called the ADLU, who defines what anti-Semitism is, and they won't take no for answer. So they make up these fucking bullshit numbers up. Like one of them, over 2,000 incidents of anti-Semitism reported. And even among their numbers, which I think is low, even among their numbers, they admit about half of those incidents come from rallies that support freeing Palestine. So they said there's 905 rallies, and this is what they include as anti-Semitic incidents. There were 905 rallies, including anti-Semitic rhetoric, expressions of support for terrorism against the state of Israel, meaning self-defense for colonized people. So if you stand for the self-defense of Palestine, they include you as anti-Semitic, which is why this is brilliantly evil. Because imagine if we had a pro-black, intellectually dishonest organization, right? They pro-black, but they're intellectually dishonest. And their statement is they alone are going to decide what's anti-black. And we as a black organization, let's say that organization is called RBN, just for the hell of it. Let's say we got a group called RBN, and we as a group called RBN, we decided that if you don't support reparations, you are now anti-black. What are you saying? Are you saying that we shouldn't get paid our unpaid labor value? Are you saying that the debt that we are owed shouldn't be paid? Are you telling me that the extra interest rates and the redlining that we suffered through, that we should just be okay with that? Oh, you don't support us getting our paycheck back? You are anti-black. And then we as an organization come out with statements. Oh, these people who put out a statement against reparation, they're anti-black. So then once we label them anti-black, then TikTok comes around, then Facebook comes around, then Meta comes around and say, oh, we're going to remove every single content creator who don't support reparations. You guys see how crazy that is? That is literally what Zionists have right now in our country. And they still pretend they're the victims. How crazy is it? A minority group that have the power to get congressional hearings just like that. A minority group that is able to get people pulled from Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, just because they don't support the political ass of the group. How crazy is that? And that is accepted as normal in our country. Sorry for that mini rant. I'll pass it back to you, CJ. We can get
No, that was needed because I was hoping you had a couple of receipts because you are way much better than me on these receipts, because I felt I wanted to insert that in on your segment about the Zionist versus Zionist, because that's the first like openly publicly they're doing it that way. And I'm telling you, in another 5 years, that's going to be how all these races are going to be. Mm-hmm. Like the one that's saying, I'm for, is that they're literally going to be going like, I'm for the genocide of Palestinians. Really? I'm for this. It's going to be genociders against genociders. Okay. That's literally, they're going to be using this sort of rhetoric.
Genocider versus the lesser.
Right. if we don't stop that now, it's so important that we stop that now. We speak against it right now. It's so important that we understand how that is connected to the censorship too. Censorship is coming, and they're going to be censoring you as by way at the ballot box by making sure they have a genocidal Zionist that you can. That's the only option you have to vote for. And just one last point. This is why it doesn't make sense to me, Roman Nick. I don't understand people like the Squad and Jamal Bowman, who support Israel, but now they're in the crosshairs of Israel because they don't support them hard enough. So you threw away your credibility with the left and sold out Palestinians, and now just to get in good graces with Israel, and now they're coming after your head. Like, I have no sympathy for you at all. I have none.
Yes, CJ, you know who's guilty of that? Nina Turner. I covered it at a time where you had AIPAC that was targeting her in her election. And then I'm blanking on the person who she fought. I don't remember
Chantel Brown.
Chantel Brown, yeah. So Chantel Brown declared loyalty to Israel very early on because she's a standard neoliberal, right? So Nina Turner, in order to prevent a wave of AIPAC ads against her, she came out against BDS. And I reported on this. She gave an interview. It was like the Jewish Insider, some like pro-Zionist outlet was asking about BDS. She's like, no, technically I don't support it. It could be discriminatory against some Jews. Be like, she pretty much threw BDS activists under the bus under the idea of oh, if I do this, I will avoid AIPAC's wrath. Oh, you dumb sweet summer child. You know what happened? AIPAC then proceeded to funnel money in her election, despite the fact that she threw BDS under the bus, and then she lost. So the progressives at Palestine, they do this all the time. They always try to appease Israel, and AIPAC always go after them because they won't take no dissent in our democracy. But go ahead, Rome, CJ. I'll pass you.
Yeah, this is where what I just want to touch on what CJ was saying about the lesser of two genociders. But this is where the lesser of two evils get you. You know, it moves the Overton window to the right every time you vote. Every time you get this motherfucker elected, they're gonna move to the right. They're gonna do something outrageous, and it's gonna have you running back like how people are running back to Donald Trump. Never Trumpers running back to Donald Trump right now because of what he's doing. Without education, that Trump is going to do the exact same things. Without the education that even if, like, think about how dumb Americans are. You have Republicans mad at Biden because he's a better Republican. Like, straight up, he getting away with so much shit. And they just call for mass deportation in the middle of a genocide that they are funding. I don't know. Y'all Americans, y'all gonna get what y'all deserve. This is what I'm saying. Americans get what they deserve because you guys refuse to fight. You fight half-ass. And then you throw your hands up for a couple of years and say, oh, well, what the fuck you mean? That's all you got? You ain't gonna, no community activism, no coming together, no keeping these people together that you have brought together to vote for this motherfucker and push on something, you know. But it is what it is. You're gonna get what you deserve, and the only way out of this is fighting the correct way. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get outside. Stop talking. Like, it's good to have conversations on the internet. It's good to have, you know, spaces like these, or you know, watch shows like these. But this is still under their control. What happens if we just blink? RBN done. Right? Now we have to go out and like, all right, I know where this nigga CJ live. Let me go back to Nick's house. Now we got to connect on the ground because they took away the only thing that we have to connect with each other, you know, on a daily basis. But we can do this on a daily basis. Get outside.
Nick, you said you had until 3. You got like 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes to cover a short story.
I got another 20 minutes or so. Yeah. All my family's off for holidays, so we're gonna be getting out to eat. So
yeah, we're about
I'm glad when you say you changed the stream to 1, I know a little behind the scene, but when you say you changed the time, I was like, damn, that's fucking perfect, bro. But anyway, go ahead. I got time for maybe another segment. Maybe a segment.
Yeah, that's it. It's short. This is short. I'm you know, we'll watch the video and we have comments. It's not a bunch of receipts on this one. It's just one, and it's Piers Morgan. I could have added this video in with the sort of the white moderate segment that I did, but he's separate because he's not a leftist. He wasn't a moderate. So what he's going to be saying in this video that we some of it that we're going to agree with. But understand, this guy is completely a establishment person. And I'm going to read this tweet by Glenn Greenwald that calls him out. Yeah, and I love Glenn's analysis of a lot of this stuff. Now, this is why one of the great things about Glenn that he's been doing lately, he's been having to call out a lot of these conservatives. And Piers Morgan is another one. You spoke to it earlier, how he's now disgusted how all these conservatives have thrown free speech under the bus when it comes to Israel. But that's beside the point. Let me read this one.
CJ, I don't know if you know what he said. I don't know if you saw the interview that he gave with Jimmy not too long ago, but he was talking about, he said he feels it's his obligation to go after these right-wingers more than anyone else right now, because he said that he viewed going after the Democrat Party as his number one party under the Trump years, because he saw how Democrats was going backwards on like the CIA and war and liberties. So now he's like, bro, I went from that. Now what I'm doing right now, my main thing is calling out these Republican hypocrites, which I'm glad that he's doing this angle, because like you say, he was in solidarity with these people. Jesse Waters was one guy he name dropped in particular where he's like, bro, Jesse Watters used to invite me on all the time. He didn't invite me on one time since October 7th. And that's definitely not a coincidence. But sorry, I just want to add to your little preface there. Go ahead, CJ.
That is classic. But here's Glenn. He says people like Piers Morgan, who spent 2 months justifying Israel's war in Gaza, now feels queasy about it and declare it must end. And to that point, there's a lot of people. Joy-Ann Reid is another one. I think Chris Hayes is another one where they're sort of now their conscience has been woken up by 20,000 dead people, and knowing that history is not going to reflect kind on people who was siding with Israel with 20,000 dead Palestinians. So they're sort of having to create record of at least criticize them so they can at least go back. No, I said this. When we can clearly pick up pull up content that shows him saying the opposite, much more content. But go ahead, Nick, before I play the video.
I love how we switch roles sometimes, where sometimes I will have a gentle take, and sometimes CJ will have a hard take, right? I'm not saying you're not wrong. I'm not pushing back on your take, but I have a slightly different, probably more harsh version of that, where I don't think it's conscious at all. Well, you know what Piers Morgan saw? Piers Morgan saw every single country in the UN vote for the ceasefire except the United States, including his own country. You guys know the UK was against the United States? So I want to be clear. I'm not saying your take is wrong, CJ, but I give these people
I'm giving them too much credit. I do that. No, because you've said this, not on this topic, but like I do because I want to, I don't know, it's something in me that's, I don't want to believe that you're an evil person. I want to believe that you're not this rotten. You get what I'm saying? That's what I want. Yeah. So it's
the only reason I say that is because, fam, Piers Morgan has been a journalist, a prominent journalist, for around 30 to 40 years. You guys understand? Piers Morgan was a thing ever since I was a thing. There was never a point I was alive where Piers Morgan wasn't a thing. So you guys think that this guy who has a career that as long as my life don't know what the fuck is going on in Israel? A guy who talked to countless people, including pro-Palestinian activists that I've seen kill it on this show. And you guys think he just now, oh my God, it's not real revelation. No, motherfucker. He saw everyone in the world come out against Israel. He sees the United States being the only one who's blocking Israel. And he don't know how this conflict will end, but he do know one thing. He do know that history is going to judge these motherfuckers horrible. Oh, yeah. And he don't want to go down with the ship. So that's my take. I agree with everything mostly CJ was saying. I give a harsher interpretation of what they're. That's the only difference.
Absolutely, which I love. But go ahead, Rome, if you're gonna say something.
He's an evil racist man. He's an evil man, evil at his core. And you know, some people are like that. You know, my father was an evil man, and it's not hard to see the evil in a person when it's a part of you. You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the fucking goodest guy, but if I can smell the blood in the water, nigga, I'm pretty sure these niggas can too.
Yeah.
This rhetoric that Piers Morgan has been pushing for years have gotten people killed. And this is why we warned you guys at RBN that your words are weapons. So be clear on what you say. And if you stand on something, stand on that shit. Don't go flippy floppy when the times get tough and everybody start looking at you like, what you got to say now? Like, oh, I didn't really mean that. Like, no. Your words are weapons. And you see how when everybody went out, they wanted to go vote for Joe Biden. Some of them same people that stood in those lines caught COVID and died for a war criminal. What would you think the people that died voting for Joe Biden would say if they would have seen what's going down in Palestine today?
Nope. Yeah. All right. I think I'd rather play the video and I'll read a little bit more of what Glenn says because the video kind of says it all. But let's listen to Piers. I can't see you guys, so let me know if you want to stop.
Rundle, welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Throughout the long and deadly history of Israel's wars with Palestine, it's usually fallen to Israel's friends to tell them when it's time to stop. That time may be fast approaching again, even as Israel insists it needs more time to eradicate Hamas. It can only have itself to blame. This weekend, the IDF admitted to killing 3 of its own hostages in Gaza. The men were waving a white flag of surrender. They'd use scraps of food to scrawl SOS, desperately pleading for help, regardless of whether they were Israeli or Palestinian.
So, you know, this is actually pretty disgusting. I've seen someone make this point. I wish I can give them credit. I don't remember their name. I really wish I can give them credit because they're the one who pointed this out. They had a viral tweet where they mentioned this. They're disgusting because he didn't turn on Israel because 20,000 dead Palestinians. They turned on Israel the second that Israel was caught killing Israeli hostages. And the second that they was caught killing Israeli hostages, that's when they like, wait, we can't justify this. The fuck? But anyway, I wish I could give credit to whoever made that. It was a great tweet where they point that out. But go ahead, we can continue.
That is true because he uses the murder of those hostages, and he also used an example. What's the other example? Because what do we care about? Israelis and Christians. Because he brings up the two girls that were killed, but they're Christians. That's why he's bringing them up. So
they also mentioned this
great point.
Yeah.
So let's listen.
Palestinian, there's no justification under international law for killing them. It's a clear breach of the rules of engagement. What does that tragedy tell us about the way Israeli soldiers are treating Palestinian civilians? How seriously should we now take Israel's...
We've been saying this the entire time. What is he talking about? Like, people have been saying this is exactly going on, but until their sort of tactics kill Israelis, now you understand that we must be questioning Israel. It's so disgusting.
This what makes these people so evil because they can just wipe their face and just be like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm moving on.
No.
Next story, guys. Like,
ain't no blood in my hands. Like, goddamn.
Insistence is doing everything it can to keep innocent people alive. In a separate incident, 2 innocent women were reportedly shot dead by sniper fire at a Catholic church in Gaza. One of them was leaving the church shelter to go to the toilet. Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster, one of Britain's most senior spiritual leaders, was scathing.
To Nick's point, Britain voted in the UN Security Council, and also this, because I think he said this is an archbishop, one of the top archbishops in Britain, coming out talking about the murder of these 2 Christian women.
It's certainly a cold-blooded killing.
The Israeli Defense Force says it didn't happen, wasn't them?
Well, I think that's hard to believe, frankly, because the people in Gaza and the Cardinal Archbishop of Jerusalem, they're not given to tell lies.
So you don't believe the Israeli Defense Force?
No, I don't.
So because an archbishop in Britain says, I don't believe the IDF in Israel, now it's okay to question what Israel is saying.
Dude, that is so fucked. I didn't know that detail. So that's why. So Piers is not even remotely giving a fuck about the Palestinians. He's just following the direction of his religion and of these people. And her question was done. You don't believe the IDF? Nigga, she should be barred from journalism. I'm usually anti-censorship, but I am pro-censorship when it comes to anyone who's asking stupid-ass questions like that. But let's continue. That's why I'm a hypocrite. I'm for censoring that dumb reporter.
What would they say? I mean, what
point went even further. He said that what is...
Go ahead.
I mean, what did they say? They didn't refuse that they had shot them, the woman and that child. They didn't refuse it at all. So what you mean believe? Yeah, I believe that they are murderers. What the hell?
Yeah, I got the video. I think I'm not gonna bring it up, but there is a short clip. It's like a 30-second clip where a guy from the Israel, I forget what his title, and he says, Rome, on video, he says, no, we didn't do that. That's made up. But now I saw another tweet. I don't know how real this is. So I'm just saying it's a tweet. I'm not reporting as it's news, but I saw another one where actually, no, let me not say that just because I don't have the receipt to say that. So let me just play this. I don't want to say that without the receipt.
What Israel's doing in Gaza now constitutes terrorism.
Unarmed civilians are being bombed and shot at, and this has even happened inside the Holy Family Parish complex, where there are no terrorists but families, children, and sick people with disabilities, nuns. Some say it's terrorism, it's war. Yes, it is war, it is terrorism.
The British government is...
Now, understand, people,
the world biggest pedophile.
If those two people that were shot were not Christians, would the Pope and the Archbishop be even speaking on it if they were not Christian Catholics? And being that they're Christian Catholics, this was a fatal flaw in Israel's sort of approach. Like for you to be so indiscriminate that you don't care that you're killing Christians or even Catholics, like this church belongs to the Catholic Church, like that wouldn't get back to them. That tells you how like they don't care about what anybody says. And I don't know if this Nick a result of the Likud party taking over? Like, is it because it's this new group that they're now because what 2014 when they had this last time when Israel went into Gaza, it was only like not even 2,000 people dead. Because of this new party, they've 10 times that, Nick, to 20,000. Go ahead.
So there was leaked messages from high-level Israeli officials that expose how the IDF has a strategy of destruction in Gaza to show the United States that international law is not real. Like, and it's one of the things they're not talking about in public. Obviously, they won't. But internal memos, they want massive destruction to show the United States, like, hey, man, if we need to take out Iran, if we need to do some shit in Syria to go after our enemies there, we can just fucking do whatever we want. This whole thing about international law is not real. So it's actually about sending that message and sending a message that Israel that is determined to take out their enemy, there is no force that will stop them, including the Catholic Church, which is why I saw there's not many of them, but I saw like people like Jake Shields. I saw Tucker, and I seen Vivek made this argument too, like the right-wing argument on why we supporting these people bombing Christians, like the same way they made in Ukraine. They made the same argument in Gaza, and to me that inherently doesn't make sense. How people not wake up to the fact that these Zionists are bombing Christians. But let's think about how wacky our reality is right now. We have evangelical Christians calling anti-Zionist Jewish people anti-Semitic for not supporting Zionism, and these same Christians are calling other Christians anti-Semitic because they don't support Jews bombing churches. Let's think about that. You guys see how weird that is? That's the reality that we are in. That's the reality that the ADL want to manufacture. Both parties in the corporate media are more than happy to go along, but we can continue to clip.
Yeah, and then we're not going to watch all of it, but there's another 30 seconds. He makes another point I just want to make sure is included in the clip, and then we can close the segment and read. We got a lot of super chats, so we'll read some super chats.
Yeah.
And is shifting his position too. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron, in a joint statement with his German counterpart, said he backs a sustainable ceasefire and said that too many civilians are being killed. Ben Wallace, the influential former defense secretary, said Benjamin Netanyahu thinks a killing rage will rectify matters, and he's very wrong. His methods will not solve the problem. In fact, I believe his tactics will fuel the conflict for another 50 years. His actions are radicalizing Muslim youth across the globe. I think he's right. All this after President Biden accused Israel of indiscriminate bombing. The starkest warning yet that America's backing is not unconditional. Well, news reports about the war in Gaza today will state that 18,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. And the key point about that often quoted sentence is not the debate about whether Hamas exaggerates those figures, is that Hamas is still in charge and able to release them as official numbers. After 2 months of war, endless atrocities, and the full might of Israel's army unleashed on this tiny strip of land, the very people they're supposed to be eradicating are still firmly in power. Only about 20% of Hamas terrorists so far, even if you accept.
That's another thing that Piers Morgan objects to as well. He would be okay with 20,000 dead Palestinian children if Hamas was weakened. So he also said that Israel failed their military objective. This is not empathy at all. But let's continue. I don't want to be too long. I know you want to finish this. I'll let the clip finish before I finish my thought.
Yeah. Let's play a few more seconds. Let me see.
IDF figures on this have been killed.
This is the part
80% remain alive and fighting. Well, most civilized countries and decent people back Israel's fundamental right to exist. and indeed its duty to defend itself.
You hear that? Most civilized people and decent. That's him saying white people without using the word white people. I'm not
that's
joking.
so foul. That's so
Yeah.
foul. I know exactly what you're saying. That's so fucking foul.
Yeah.
He said that. Wow.
That's what he's saying.
So also,
Because what do white people think of all indigenous people that we're not civilized?
Savage.
That's what they think. But go ahead, Nick.
So like, I'm not really impressed. Like, I'm happy in general to see the tide is turning. Like, we shouldn't be praising Piers Morgan for this at all because he's morally disgusting and he's an opportunist. But it's a good gauge of the Overton window because he's a centrist.
Yes.
So if he's doing it, it shows that the Overton window is moving, which is good. Now let's look at his logic, which shows the faulty logic of the Zionists in the first place. Because he says, well, Israel indiscriminately killing civilians leads to the rise of Hamas. So that's why he's opposed that. Okay. Why does Hamas exist in the first place, Piers? Let's continue to work backwards. So he says we shouldn't be bombing Palestinians because Palestinians that will create Hamas. Why Hamas exist then? You know why? Because 2022 was one of the deadliest years in Palestinian history. That's why. Because the war didn't start in October 7th, despite what you've been telling your audience, Piers. So if you guys now acknowledge that bombing Palestinians create Hamas, that means there's something wrong with the greater overall existence of Israel if they can only exist by bombing Palestinians. Once again, do you guys think I'm smart? I'll say above average. But I'm a college dropout that do not have the experience that these people do. I am not anything special. I just read a lot, fam. I'm just an average fucking Joe who was decent at math. You know what I mean? These people can go through these same critical thought processes that I'm leading you to. They choose not to.
Yeah.
You
know what I mean? That's my view. But that's my last thought on the segment.
Yeah.
CJ Rome,
Let me just read. Let me just read Glenn's tweet. It says the Israelis was crystal clear from the start about what they intended to do in Gaza. It was politically hard on October 10th to object when it mattered. That's when it matters, what he's saying. And then Glenn goes on to say, I suppose it's better for influential people. It's sort of what you're saying here, Nick. I suppose it's better for influential figures to now declare Israel has crossed every moral line and thus must stop. But the Israelis have been very clear that they don't care about disapproval from Western liberals as long as U.S. money and arms keep flowing in, which it is. And this is the last part of his tweet, of his thread. One thing I really believe Piers Morgan deserves credit for is how committed he is in airing genuine pro-Palestinian voices, not newly J Street types, but hardcore Israel critics, along with many Israel supporters. It is very rare in mainstream media. Now, he did have that comedian on that went kind of hard and he went viral. So, yeah, to that point, Sabby says that's right. He spewed nonsense for weeks. And then Glenn responds to Sabby by saying, Chris Hayes hilariously did the same thing. Similarly, this week, he acted as if he wasn't some sort of Walter Cronkite figure making a major address to the nation by announcing the attack on Gaza must end. He has offered J Street type critiques. They love to wait for political safety. That is absolutely for politically safety. That means when it's safe, and you alluded to this earlier, Nick, like when the establishment give you the green light, that's when you come out and say something. My final word. Go ahead, Rome, if you have something.
Yeah, I just want to say something about him saying, 80% of Hamas is still fighting or active or whatnot. Like that says a lot, and it says that your army is weak, that it's built is full of cowards, because there's no way you guys have all this money, all this technology, and all this foreign aid, foreign weapons, drones, and Hamas is still at 80%. That doesn't make any sense at all. So what are you guys doing with the bombs that we send over there? Are you ethnic cleansing with them, or are you targeting Hamas? See, and this is where we already know that IDF and all the motherfuckers popped up Hamas. We know that they was in cahoots, and this is their Tom and Jerry. It's the bread and butter. This is the bread and butter, because as long as they can stay alive and have keep enough of Hamas leadership alive, they can always have a reason to go out and kill them people. They will always have a reason.
Yeah, and I want to add this. This is a shotgun segment. I may do a longer segment on this later because I think this is very important. And I think it relates to this story because they're not only losing Piers Morgan, they losing multiple establishment papers like the Washington Post. Now, the Washington Post never does investigative journalism that goes against the establishment. You guys understand? They generally never do investigative research that go against the establishment, except when it comes to this recent Israel thing, because Israel gone too far. Like, this is crazy. The Washington Post just came out, and I may do another segment on this when I got more time where I read the whole thing. I'll just read a little bit now. The Washington Post completely, utterly destroys Israel's claim that Hamas was operating out Al-Shifa Hospital. I was about to do that as a longer segment, but I'll make it a quick shotgun segment. Like, for real, super, super quick. Well, I'll just read the tweet because I'm going to cover this later. Because ever since the Al-Shifa Hospital psyop, you have idiots like Tim Pool, literally all the giant right-wing populist accounts that wanted to believe that Al-Shifa was Gaza. Remember the Max Blumenthal debate on Tim Pool that we covered, CJ? And remember how they wanted to believe the establishment so bad? Like, without investigating, they're like, we're going to believe the government to prove it otherwise, which is absurd that anyone would do that because we should question the government into proving otherwise. But they take the exact opposite way. But here's the tweet. The Washington Post just released an in-depth investigation on Israel's assault on Al-Shifa Hospital. The Post analyzed open-source visuals, satellite imagery, and all the publicly released IDF materials highlight of the investigation, which I will cover in detail later, but I wanted to bring this to your attention before the weekend, because what does this mean? This means that Joe Biden should be impeached absolutely fucking immediately. Because who was the first one that came out to repeat lies about Hamas being Al-Shifa Hospital? Not only did the Biden administration repeat lies that Al-Shifa was a Hamas headquarters. Remember how Biden lied and said he saw evidence?
40 hit, yeah.
How is George Santos fucking eligible to be expelled from Congress because he's a unique liar? George Santos is a unique liar, right? We're supposed to hate George Santos, but Biden lied about this. He lied about the Palestinian death count. But Democrats are melting down by impeachment, and Republicans are impeaching them over dumb shit compared to what you should be impeached over. So that's a short statement. I need to shut up. That meant to be just bring it to your guys' attention. What are your any initial reaction to this?
Yeah. So wait. So explain that investigation is proof. What is it?
So I'll read the
uncovering that story. Yeah. What is that uncovering? I didn't quite understand.
Yeah. So they're exposing. Let me pull it back up. Here's the tweet again. The Washington Post just released an in-depth investigation on Israel's assault on Al-Shifa Hospital. So the Post, this is answer your question here. The Post analyzed open source visuals, satellite imagery, and all the publicly released IDF materials. I will read one part out because I read the whole thread. One thing that the Washington Post points out is that there was no evidence of what Israel would claim. You know what I mean? So Israel would claim, we got all these photos and we got this evidence that Hamas is using this location right here as a military operation base. And then they were like, all right, we will look into the evidence, and then they will have none. So what the IDF would do, they would say, we got evidence, and then they would count on the Western media to just repeat the fact that they have evidence. They will have Joe Biden come out and say, I saw the evidence. And then without ever providing the evidence. So what the Washington Post did, and there's no doubt in my mind that they launched this investigation wanting to find Hamas. You think the Washington Post didn't want, we did the investigation, we found Hamas. You think they didn't want to do that? But they did the investigation. They found that none of these claims had evidence. So I'll just read these two tweets. I'll read 2 tweets because I think that they may help you understand the story more. Israel claimed that 5 hospital buildings were directly involved in Hamas activities. The buildings sat atop underground tunnels that was used by militants to direct rocket attacks and command fighters, that the tunnels can be accessed from inside hospitals. And the Post found that no evidence of military use by Hamas of the rooms connected to the tunnels. They also found that no evidence the 5 hospital buildings identified by the IDF were connected to the tunnel network. So I should have read it this way because I see what they did. She put the claim and then she showed how Washington Post showed that wasn't true. So they claimed that there were 5 hospital buildings that was used by Hamas. They found no evidence of that. They said the building sat on underground tunnel that were used by Hamas. They found no evidence of that. So that's essentially what the article was, debunking all their claims in great non-left details. I mean, it's not like radical shit. It's just them being like, we're looking at the evidence and we're going to use our clout as the establishment paper to write what we find as true. So that's my short story. Anything else you want to add? I don't want to be too much.
Yeah. Now that because I did.
There's going to be a thing, like, because people are already talking about it. Because RBN saying that Israel lied about the Al-Shifa hospital. You see what media ranked them. Already seeing establishment people got to acknowledge this now. Morning Joe's going to have to acknowledge this because the Washington Post did an expose. They hyping this up as a big investigative report, which they do not do often. So the establishment are going to have to reconcile with this. And the reason why I add this right now, because I think they're going ahead with your Piers Morgan segment. They lost Piers Morgan, and now they got the Washington Post on their ass. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's my last thoughts, and we can
So the reason why sort of this is important is because it's coming out on the Washington Post. I would say, I mean, the only other paper that would make it maybe trump that would be maybe the New York Times if they came out with something like this. And I think what the United States in their media and everything is learning is that maybe that this LaCrue or however you say the name of this new party, their level of propaganda is so cartoonish. We can't co-sign to this because then people are going to understand we are freaking clowns. Like, y'all need to step up your propaganda game here. This is what it seems like they're trying to expose. Yeah, it's like they're trying to expose. Like, come on, guys. If you're gonna participate in this shit, you need to step this up. Call some Hollywood producers. Get Steven Spielberg. He's a Zionist. Bring him in here. Bring in freaking Jerry Seinfeld. They got enough freaking.
I have an analogy
to do that. Go ahead.
So when we spar, we're not trying to hurt each other. When we spar, if I pop your ass with a left hook, it's because your right hand dropped. So I pop you with a left hook in our sparring session, so you learn not to do that. You guys see what I'm saying here?
Mm-hmm.
So corporate media, American media, the UK media, they're not trying to fuck Israel up. They're not trying to into that left hook. They just popping them. Hey, bro.
None of them have yet to call for a ceasefire. None of them called for ceasefire. No matter how sad or they sound or look, none of them said those words. None of them said that we need a permanent ceasefire. You haven't heard that because they don't fucking want it, and they don't give a damn. But yeah, that's
great. That's a great story. I can't wait to see the development, and I want to see what Morning Joe says on Monday about that. If they cover it at all, they might. No, I can't see them not covering that Washington Post headline. They got some corporate news outlet has got to cover that.
I can see them being that shameless. I think they will because they covered the Netanyahu October. I was shocked, CJ, when they covered the October 7th story, how Israel killed their own. When they covered, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why I think they may cover it, but it wouldn't surprise me. They're so shameless. They just ignored it. It wouldn't surprise me either way. CJ, Ron, you mind if I pass to you for super chats? I always stay a little bit longer than I planned.
I'm gonna just read through them because I gotta get out of here too. So So we're just gonna kind of read through these. Not too much commentary for me. I gotta get out of here. Zionism is designed to facilitate fascism on behalf of the West in order to escape anti-Semitism. They're connected to every aspect of it: censorship, surveillance, police state, border hawking, toll. That is absolutely spot on, Sean, and thank you for the super chat. Like he says, all of these things are connected because they're all coming and being inflicted on us by the empire, the U.S. empire. And this one from Dr. Nick Rivera, our good friend Dwayne Vogel, 85-year-old man, is in surgery this morning. They could use your positive vibe. So, all right. So, is that Dwayne Vogel? Positive vibes coming from Rome and CJ over here at RBN. Yeah. This one from, I think that's Gala. This one from Gala. Thank you for the super chat. I don't have glasses, so I need some glasses. Check out Crystal Zionist Ball's picture at pro-Israel fundraiser with her ex-husband. This woman is such a fraud. Yeah, I remember that same picture. Thank you for this one here, JF, a super sticker. Thank you for that. Very much appreciated. This one from Maine My Taco, a regular. Thank you for the super chat. AOC has betrayed our indigenous ancestors, period.
Thanks.
Factual. This one here, he bought Name My Taco gifted 5 memberships.
God damn.
So that's 5 right there. He gifted.
Thank you. I think he
and then he bought or this one is 10 months for GV Black, 10 more months of membership you just bought. Double check you like the video, always helping us out with that. Here's another one from GV Black, gifted 5 memberships. So what is that, Nick? I mean, what is that, Rome? And that's
I don't know. I think it's like if somebody go into the membership thing, they can get one for free. I believe. I don't know. That's what it sounds like.
That's how it works. No, that's how it works. That's how it works. I was just saying. I think that's 10 so far. We had 2 people give 5 each.
Show DDR.
So that's 10 so far. Thank you for that. This one, I like Brianna Joy Gray a lot, but my biggest problem with her logic on Marianne Williamson is that it's still just lesser of two evilism, and anyone still running them is too evil. And that's a spot on. I don't think she would push back on that too much, Sam. But let's go to Revo Lucas, $5.99 sticker. Thank you for that. This one, Amanda Brinkley. Israel, via the Israel lobby, is controlling Congress and a lot of companies too. And I don't understand. It's almost like Israel has some freaking info on everybody and all over the world for them to be coming out this way. This one, Sean, also, I'm in a staunchly Democratic union outside of Philly. And bigotry is a giant problem. White people who deny it yell at people to organize on class levels, children. I mean, I can't speak to that, but I do know people in Philadelphia, other areas like New Jersey, who have some similar sentiments that you speak to here. Yeah, Boston is another one. Yeah. Thank you here. This is Yantra, $2.99 sticker. Thank you for that. People like this Founders Roundtable, Ro. We got to make this a 2024 thing. Yeah. We got to try to do this maybe every Friday or, whenever we can do it. This one here from Chima. Why is it that Americans don't know how to protest for what matters when we do? Why is it usually over same chauvinistic or consumeristic bullshit? Meaning, like, you're saying we should be protesting for a lot more shit. You sound like Rome here, saying like y'all need to add up a whole bunch of other shit that you protest about. Go ahead, Rome.
y'all, this is under education, lack of education. That's the short answer.
That's
lack
what we're here for, though.
Because people, people have the energy. Some people have the heart. It's just in the wrong place. Some people.
But that's why RBN is here, to hopefully push people and help people to get to that place. This one from Name That Taco. Also, the Yemenis made the UK be against the atrocities. Yes, because they were bombing the hell out of their commercial liners over there in the Red Sea. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, because they losing so much money. It's not about, I found the heart. Everybody losing billions of dollars, not just Israel. That's what I know. A lot of the younger.
If there was a country, if Rome, if you was a country, you would be Yemen. And I would be like Rome is Yemen, like of the most radical people, like in the ocean shooting bombs. Like that's Rome. If it was a country, Rome would be Yemen. That's for sure. This one. I read that one. This one right here. When will you add caps hats to your merch? I think you talked about doing it. Love Love you. SKE is Sweden. Oh, that's Sweden. So now we know SKE is Sweden. Shout out to you, Mark, in Sweden. Right now, our editor is going through a lot with her family situation. She's still going through that. She's the one that puts together our graphics. And we were just talking about Rome and I. Rome has a bunch of more ideas we want to add. He just right now we haven't been able to add them on. So hopefully maybe late January we're able to add those on as we see what happens with our editor. So thank you for that. Here's the last one right here, and then we'll get out of here. This one from 007 Angelo. You need to see Danny Haifonk's show from last night. Crazy. I gotta check that out. I hadn't heard anything about it. I can pass it to you, Rome, or I can end it. I can pass it to you if you want to shout out anything, and I can take off.
Shout out this crap.
Let me take off though. I gotta go pick up my daughter. I'm already late. They got a minimum day. Rome, we got to make this Founders Corner happen every week. I mean, not every week, but make it happen as often as we can. People love to see us. We haven't gotten 18 super chats, Rome, in a while. That's why I know people love having us here. So I wanted to just say that have a good holiday. I know you don't really celebrate nothing, but this is always time for family. Yeah. So if I don't talk to you over this weekend, because the funny thing for me is my daughter's birthday the day before Christmas, so I got a bunch of shit. Yeah, I got a bunch of shit to do.
Birthday.
Yeah.
My son's birthday in a couple of days too, on the 30th, 31st. Sure. So yeah.
All right. I pass it to you for your shout outs, and everybody have a good one. I'll see you later.
All right. First of all, I wanted to hold on. Can anybody see this? Yep, yeah, I can. Okay, so I want to give a shout out to everybody that's helping me so far. And let me hold on. Let me see if I can do this right, because I want to share both. Oh no, I only can share one at a time. So okay, I'm gonna share this. I want to give a shout out to everybody who helped me. Like, we got $13,117 raised. That's just on GoFundMe. Of course, that's not the Venmo, Cash App, and Zelles and whatnot. But this is doing good. This is doing great. Of course, it's been a minute since I had promoted it, but I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's trying to make this happen, because pretty soon we should be closing up the floor, and I'm going to be focusing on getting the carpet and the flooring back down. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share some pictures of what we was working on and what I'm about to go work on next. Let's see. So I just cleaned up my other basement. Hold on. Well, I didn't clean it. AJ cleaned it. Don't let me see. As you can see, we're getting some hardwood flooring. I still ain't pay for that, but he trusts me, so he's saying like, nigga, just pay it off. So, but this is what I had to go brace the floor with, and because the floor was falling in. It's always something with this damn building. So I had to fix the floor, brace it again, and whatnot. Oh no. Surprisingly, the lights work out here. And luckily, some comrades had donated like $500. I had replaced those. But if you can, please donate to Tour for the Poor. Donate to We're Building a Library for Detroit. Oh damn, I forgot about that. But it's going good so far. I'm about to be on my way to the library after this. If y'all want to help me out. Anybody want a Christmas tree? With more supplies, we need a lot of older than you. I'm going to be expanding one of the bathrooms. The bathroom is
hey, that bitch beige, nigga. That bitch ain't even white no more.
Just threw out.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, it's a big building. Like, people like, damn, you've been working on this for a year. Nigga, it's just me and some other guy. Always me and some other guy. But we always we trying to get it together. But if you can, donate to Tour for the Poor. If you can come out, if you close to Detroit, yes, I need libraries. If you go on my Twitter page, all the information is right there where you can send books. And if you can come out, let me know, DM me, email me, bethea.rome, bethea.rome@gmail.com. Email me if you can come out, if you can help out, because we need anybody that can come out. We need all hands on deck. It doesn't matter if you are a carpenter or tech whiz. We're gonna need your help, trust me. But thank you to everybody who stopped by for Revolutionary Blackout. You're gonna be seeing my face a lot more. I know I've been kind of lazy on this, but I've been trying to find myself and make sure I get my affairs in order before I come back and give you guys half of me, So I love you too. We're gonna I'm gonna be back, and hopefully I'll be bringing back Rome's Rebellion. I do want to do a different show. It's gonna be pre-recorded. It's gonna be more like true crime, but in politics and whatnot. So I'm gonna come back. I got y'all. Just give me some time. I promise I ain't going nowhere. Revolutionary Blackout is forever. Forever, ever, forever, ever. We forever. And we're gonna be here forever. Believe it, believe it. I love y'all so much. Donate to the library, subscribe to our Substack, buy some merchandise, go feed some hungry people. If you got room in your house, go put a roof over somebody's head for a day or so. Enjoy your day. I love you.